Okay, everyone, welcome to Talk About Pain, and I have a special treat for you today. Melissa Deely is an integrative mind-body health practitioner, also trained in NLP, timeline therapy, and hypnotherapy. She's dedicated to helping her clients discover the root cause of their health issue and truly heal while detoxing their physical, mental, and emotional bodies. Melissa's business is 100% virtual, and she works with the entire English speaking world. Melissa also uses the power of functional medicine lab tests mailed to your home while offering a very high level of support to ensure her clients' success as we navigate the path, bringing the physical, mental, and emotional bodies back into balance while creating new lifestyle habits to ensure lasting results. Melissa has been named to the 2022 Korea Global Award list and the winner of the Alignable 2022 Local Business Person of the Year Award for Whistler and the 2021 Quality Care Award by Businesses from the Heart. Melissa is also the host of the Don't Wait for Your Wake Up Call podcast, a podcast offering practical education around health, which ranked in the top 5% of global podcasts by Listen Notes in the first 3 months of launching. When not serving her clients, Melissa can be found on her paddleboard, backcountry hiking and camping with her daughters, downhill or cross-country skiing, or planning her next trip for her Girl Guide unit, or working on her passion project, Girls Matter, helping keep girls in school in Uganda, breaking the poverty cycle, one girl, one family, one village at a time. To contact Melissa, just look in the links below. Welcome, Melissa. You got a lot going on.
I do have a lot going on, Rick, but it's
for you.
so much fun.
It is fun, isn't it? Yeah.
It really is. If I wasn't busy, I would be bored. And boredom, you and I both know that boredom that goes on for too long leads to depression. And so
Yeah.
I love to keep busy. And when you love your work and you have your passion projects and you have your playtime, life is good.
Yes, it is. We've got a lot to dig into here. So what I'd like you to do is maybe talk about how you got into what you're doing now and maybe go into a little bit of depth of how you can help people.
Absolutely. So I was very much guided into the work that I do today. I was in the corporate world for 24 years, loved my job until one day big fish bought little fish and I was let go. And I was given an hour to clear out my desk, no word of thanks. And that hurt the most after 24 years was no word of thanks. And I knew three things in that moment. That I was never working for someone else again. That whatever I did next had to be more of service to humanity and to the planet or to the environment. And I had no idea what that was going to be, but I was absolutely open to it being a completely different career. I felt like this was a chance to do something else in the second half of my life. I fully intend to be a centenarian, and I was under 50 when this happened, so I knew I still had a lot of time, right? And I didn't know what that would be, but I was open to being guided. And later that year, I found a company that specialized in brain supplementation. And I thought, well, that's interesting because I use my brain 24/7 and no one's ever taught me that I could actually do more for my brain. And I also knew that we were at near epidemic levels of Alzheimer's and dementia. And on the other side, I had a grandmother who was 99 years old at the time, still living at home, fully cognitively functioning and caring for herself. So I knew I had good genes, but something inside me made me question, is that enough? Or do I need to be doing more? And I started thinking about her life and comparing it to my life. And she was born in little old Christchurch, New Zealand back in 1916 in the, before World War II and all the toxins that have been introduced since then. And, eating organic food grown on their property, right? And I had the good fortune to be raised in Tokyo, Japan, amazing life, but it was the 1970s in a time when manufacturing plants were spewing out toxins. And so I realized I am more toxic than my grandmother ever was. And I wonder what that's doing to my health and my longevity relative to hers. And so I started learning about the brain supplementation because there was also a detox component to that. And then I started learning more about what toxins are doing to our health. And shortly after that, my oldest daughter then got a concussion in her first grade 12 soccer game of the season. And so because I wasn't working full time, I had the ability to go to all of the appointments with her, and everything happens for a reason, right? She didn't have the cognitive ability to go to the appointment and retain what was told to her to come home and tell me so I could support her between appointments, right? So I was going with her so I would hear it for myself and could support her. 2 months later, my younger daughter got a concussion in grade 8 gym class.
Wow.
And I was driving when I got that phone call from the school to come and pick her up. And I literally looked out my windshield, up at the heavens, and said, really? This is how you show me my path? Stop taking out my children, right? What are the odds of 2 concussions in the same household in 2 months?
Yeah.
And so now I'm going to both sets of appointments with them, guiding them, very different concussions. And I realized people need more support on their healing journey. It's not enough just to go to the appointment, right? There's work that has to be done between appointments. And how do people do that for themselves when they're not feeling great? Maybe they're concussed, they don't even remember what they were told to do, or they're just stressed out because they feel like crap, and they're, on Dr. Google and they're trying to figure it out. It's hard. And so I realized people need more support. And at the same time, I was invited to work at a holistic clinic that was opening up because I'm in Whistler, BC. We have a lot of, downhill skiing, downhill biking, a lot of concussion. And other people were reaching out to me because it's a small town and they knew our story, saying, I have an employee that got a concussion. How do I support them? My husband got a concussion. What should I do? My child had a concussion. And it wasn't that I was the only one in town that knew about concussions. We have many experts dealing with concussions here, especially in the physiotherapy realm. But I was approaching it from a nutritional point of view that was different to what everybody else was doing, right? So it was another piece in the puzzle, as you love to talk about yourself. So I was invited to work in this clinic to continue to support people in their healing journey from concussions, but I couldn't get insurance to work there because I didn't have a certification. So my experience, my own research and learning wasn't enough. So I called a friend who was a life coach because ever since I'd been let go, life coach had been bouncing in the back of my head, but it hadn't landed. Anyway, now maybe it needed to land. I called him, said, where did you do your life coach training? I need a certification so I can get insurance. And he said, you don't need to be a life coach. You need to be a health coach. And I was like, what? What's that? I'd never even heard the term before. And so I consider that another gift. And that landed immediately. And I started researching health coaching schools. And within 10 days, I had started with a new cohort. And from the moment I landed there, I knew that I had found my next career. And I absolutely loved it. I couldn't learn fast enough. I just wanted to study all day long, every day. I was doing other research and learning outside of this, and also having all of these ahas along the way, like, why don't I know this about my own body? I'm in my 40s and I've never learned this. And then the realization, well, because I've been busy, building my career and raising kids and being a wife and going to university and all those things I'd done in all of my previous years. And so then another aha, if I don't know this, how many other millions of people out there don't know this information? And if I could share this information, all these little tips, hacks, learning habits that are negatively impacting our health that we don't even realize are negatively impacting our health. But if we knew, we would change the habit. So I loved this. And from there, I was introduced to integrative health practitioners. And that's where I did my training to learn how to run the functional medicine lab tests for people and show people the science and truly understand what's going on inside the body so we can get to that root cause. Because the body is designed to self-heal. We just have to figure out what's going on that is causing the symptoms that we're having, and then where the deficiencies are, what toxicities are in the way, so we can remove the toxicities, support the deficiencies, bring the body back into balance, at which point it will heal itself. It's a beautiful thing. And from there, I've continued my learning because I've realized we actually have 4 bodies. We have our spiritual body, our mental body, our emotional body, and our physical body. And by the time the symptoms are showing up in our physical body, they've already passed through the other 3 bodies. So for that true lasting healing, we need to be addressing what's going on in the physical and the mental and spiritual and emotional bodies, all the bodies, in order to truly allow someone to heal, which we can absolutely do. And we just need to know how and be guided along the way. So when we try to do it ourselves, we're not sure if we're doing it right. We're still in the stress state. And the body won't heal in the stress state. When we can instead sit back into guidance and trust in the process, that's when the body can start healing.
Well, folks, this is why I had Melissa on here, because we both see very similarly eye to eye about the body. However, we're both coming from 2 different, perspectives, but they so perfectly blend, I feel. I mean, my approach is more physical, but I also take into account emotional and, dietary, and yours is coming more from that toxin standpoint, but you're also taking in the physical and the emotional, mental. So this is why I was really excited to have you on here. So,
well, and exactly, since the first time we met, I've been so excited to connect, and I've, referred some people to you, had some people buy your programs, because there are a lot of people living in chronic pain, and what is causing that chronic pain. And I can help them from the perspective of removing those toxins, bringing down the inflammation on the body, working through some of those mindset factors that might have them stuck in that chronic pain space. But you can actually address the physical aspect of that chronic pain to alleviate it. And so it is such a great partnership. And so I really appreciate that we were connected. I'm not even sure who connected us now. I usually remember that, but
well, I was thinking back to your story and how both of your kids had to suffer concussions in order for you to, get your message. And, I just wonder, had that not happened, maybe you never would have even gone down this path. And some people need to be woken up a little bit more than others in different ways. So there's always those messages coming at us, and whether we're paying attention or not is what really matters.
Exactly. And the great news is both girls have fully recovered from their
That's
concussions.
wonderful.
And interestingly, they both had secondary, much more minor concussions a couple of years later, both in soccer this time. And this time it was 2 days apart. So I don't know what it is with my girls. And they were, at this time, they were in different provinces. So my older daughter was in Quebec at university, and my younger daughter was here in Whistler. And my younger daughter got the concussion first this time. 2 days later, I'm walking out of my yoga studio, and my older daughter calls me and says, I'm just got a concussion. And my response to her was, ha ha, that is really not funny. I don't have time for this right now. And she's like, no, listen to me, mommy. I'm at physio. This is what happened. And I have a concussion. And I'm like, really? Not again.
Oh my gosh. I guess you didn't learn it well enough the first time around. So you had to be reminded maybe that you're on the right path.
I really don't know what the message the second time was. Maybe just stick the course, right? You're on the right path, stay with it. And that happened prior to me joining integrative health. But the universe can rest assured, I'm not stopping what I'm doing now. I absolutely love, and I have so much passion for this. And I really love the education around health too, because if people understand the why, they're so much more likely to stick with a program. And I absolutely know that was true for me, which is why that's what I offer to other people. And years ago, I had always suffered migraines since I was about 18, and they were hormonal. I always got them at the onset of my cycle. But when I was about, 23, 24, maybe, I suddenly got them for like 5 days in a row, really intense, and not just a 1 or 2 day thing. And so I went to the doctor asking, why am I suddenly getting them for 5 days? Like, I'm not functioning well at work right now. And she didn't have an answer, but she wanted to give me a stronger drug and told me to take a week off because they could be cyclical and maybe that would just break the cycle. And taking a week off didn't work. And I absolutely didn't want the stronger drug. I wanted to know why. And I don't know what innately drove me to that, but it just made sense, because if I knew why they were suddenly worse, I could do something about it, right? And she had no answers. And so that drove me to find a naturopathic doctor and look for another way. And I went and saw that doctor, who did an hour-long intake with me, and at the end said, well, let's run your hormones. I'm like, oh my goodness, yes, that's what I would like to do, because that will show me something. Even if it's ruling things out and it's not
Yeah.
hormonal related at all, it will show me something. It gives me some data to work with. Well, turned out my progesterone levels were really low. And for me, that's what was triggering the migraines. Well, now we knew this, we could do something about it. So she gave me this disgusting herbal remedy that I had to take a teaspoon of every day for 2 weeks of 2 cycles. But even after the first cycle, I noticed the next time around, my migraines were significantly less. And after
Wow.
I'd done that for 2 months, I didn't have migraines anymore for like 7 years. And so how powerful is that, to get to the root, to do something about it, as opposed to being dependent on that drug day in and day out every time I got a migraine?
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
yeah, so I was super happy about that.
Yeah.
And it lasted for 7 years, because our hormones are always changing, right? 7
Right.
years later, the migraines came back. But now I knew exactly what to do. I marched back into that naturopath's office and said, give me some of that disgusting stuff. And it worked again, right? And
Yeah.
then years later, I hit menopause and the migraines were different. And so then I went back and said, we need to run the labs again, because they're different this time. So something else is off. And turned out low estrogen, low progesterone, low testosterone, very common in perimenopausal women. But now I could address that. And so it's ironic, because that all happened more than 20 years ago. But that's the exact same lab that I offer my clients to this day when we're wanting to do a hormone assessment.
Yeah.
It's powerful information to have.
It is, and it's so critical. I found more and more with more of my chronic pain patients. There is an aspect of this that's playing into this, because I shouldn't have to work so hard on the musculoskeletal side of things
Mm-hmm.
to get people out of pain. And when I do, I really start suspecting there's something else going on here. And that's why I'm just so happy to know someone like you, because I've never gotten a chance to really talk to people like you. And so
Right.
that's why I'm so excited, because I know this is a big piece of the puzzle, folks. So we've talked around this a little bit, Melissa. What can you describe, like, what is functional medicine? How would you define it? How do people use it? What kind of people are functional medicine practitioners?
So it's interesting that you asked that question, because I just did a blurb on it in in a recent podcast I recorded that's coming out next month, is just talking about all the different types of medicines that are out there in the world today. So
Oh,
functional medicine is one type of medicine. And really the definition of functional medicine is looking for the root cause, is going deeper, not just accepting that, because I have aches in my joints, that I'm getting older and I ignore the symptom, or because my blood pressure is high, I now need to take a drug for the rest of my life. Running labs with your doctor, very important to do it. And as you get older, to do it every year, because again, it's data points as to what's going on with your body, and you see the change from year to year. But if you get diagnosed with high blood pressure, for instance, you're often not told why. You're just told, you've got high blood pressure, here's the drug you now need to take. Whereas on the functional medicine side, we're going to say, okay, well, you didn't have high blood pressure last year or 10 years ago or whenever you last did blood work. Why do you have it now? And we're going to run different labs that we have access to that will start to show us what your electrolyte levels are, what your cortisol levels are, what your inflammation markers are, all of which are playing into the triggering that high blood pressure. And when we know that, we can then start to rebalance the electrolytes, bring the inflammation levels down, work with you on the lifestyle changes, the nutritional changes, etc., to lower the cortisol levels and lower the stress on your system, so that you can get off those medications and not need them anymore, but instead just be making sure all your nutritional markers are where they should be. And the thing is in our stressed out world that we're in today, especially after the last 2 years, many people are nutritionally depleted, because we burn through our minerals, we burn through our vitamins in that stress state. And it's very hard for us to replenish them, partially because we live in a world of nutrient depleted soils now, right? and partially because we live in a world of a highly processed food diet. So people that are living on that highly processed, convenient food diet, they're only getting 17 of the necessary 90 nutrients that our body needs every single day. But even for people that are trying to eat healthy, they can still be deficient simply because we have nutrient depleted soils, which are the result of 150 years of industrial agriculture, take from the soil and not allowing that soil to settle and rejuvenate the nutrients. And if the nutrients aren't in the soil, they're not grown into our food. So as an example of that, where we're at today is if I were to eat an orange, and my grandmother had eaten an orange back in the 1930s, for me to get the same nutrient content that she got from one orange back then, I'd need to eat 9 in one sitting. In one sitting. And nobody would ever do that because they're so full of fiber that you would get full really fast, right?
Right.
So that's where we need to be ensuring that we are replenishing and supporting our bodies. And so that can also require, supplementation along the way. I have some supplements that I recommend everybody take every single day because they're so critical to our ability to function, and we're not getting them through our soils. One of those is magnesium, and over 70% of North Americans are deficient. But it's critical for over 300 functions within the body, as well as helping calm the body, right? So again, that stress state everyone's living in, how many people are being diagnosed with anxiety, etc., unable to slow the mind at nighttime. Just adding magnesium can be incredibly beneficial. And people just need to know, how to take it, what type to take, etc., which is what I work with my clients on. So that's one example. Omega-3s are another example. And omega-3s are our anti-inflammatory essential fatty acid. The body doesn't make them. We have to get them through our food or supplementation. The problem is getting those omega-3s through our food can be hard because they're most prominent in wild fatty fish. Not everybody likes wild fatty fish, like, wild salmon and sardines and anchovies and rockfish and catfish, etc., etc. Right? So they're not eating that on a regular basis. Yes, you can get it through some plant-based foods like flax seeds, chia seeds, etc., but then it still has to go through an extra conversion in the body as well, which means you got to eat more of that for the body to be able to do something with it. And yet our omega-6s are in everything. And omega-6s are the inflammatory essential fatty acid. Yes, we need them too, but we don't need them in excess, right? The body always wants to be in some kind of balance. And ideally, the balance for omega-3 to omega-6, or I'll say it the other way around, omega-6 to omega-3 is 5-1 in today's world. In our hunter-gatherer days, what they were getting was actually 3-1. But the average North American right now is at 18-1. 18 omega-6s to 1 omega-3. That's the inflammatory to the anti-inflammatory. So you're working
no wonder.
Yeah, you're working with people that are in chronic pain. Well, some of that is because of the high inflammation levels in our body. And people might hear, well, inflammation is the root of all disease. I beg to differ. It is a factor in all disease, but it's not the root. What is causing that inflammation? Right?
I love how you're putting this. And what I love, Melissa, is that it's always coming down to the why.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to stop at that something that's happening. And that's where I feel a lot of people do stop is, oh, this is happening, but why is that happening? And if we keep getting down to those whys, we're finally going to get to that root. So I'm just kind of curious, it sounds like there's just a huge spectrum of, ailments that you would work with. What are the most common types of ailments that you see that you find that how you work is most effective for?
So really what I've niched down to is gut health issues as well as women's hormones. So gut health issues are rampant today for so many reasons. First of all, poor sleep and poor stress will create an imbalance in our gut, and that causes gut health issues. High toxicity causes problems in our gut, and that's a starting point that I work with everybody is lowering that toxic load. the more imbalanced our gut, the more toxic our gut, the more food sensitivities we develop along the way. So there are so many people out there that are struggling with heartburn and thinking the answer is popping antacids. It's not. That actually makes it worse, because that stops your body producing stomach acid, which is the very thing it needs to break down your food. And you might think because you have heartburn, you have too much stomach acid, but that is not actually the case. It's a functional breakdown in the body that is actually triggering the heartburn. And that is that the lower esophagenic sphincter is getting floppy and it's not closing up nice and tight anymore. And so the little bit of stomach acid that's still in the stomach can seep out and get up into the esophagus and cause that heartburn. And the sphincter gets floppy when the body's been living in a state of chronic stress.
Mm.
When the body is in a state of chronic stress, digestion also doesn't turn on, because we have chronic stress, fight or flight, and we have the opposite, rest and digest. So we have to get out of the stress state for digestion to turn on. And digestion, if it isn't turned on, the body's not producing stomach acid. So not only are we stressed out, we're eating while we're stressed out, the body's not producing stomach acid, it can't break down the food properly, but we're putting antacids in on top of that to stop any stomach acid being produced because we're suffering heartburn. And we just make everything down the line worse, because now digestion takes longer, so food starts to ferment in the body. We don't want that. It becomes a great big garbage dump inside there when this is happening, on top of the toxins that are in there. So people are struggling with eating food, and we need to eat for energy. It's critical to our ongoing existence, but it should be enjoyable. It should be something that we get to do in community as well, as opposed to just rushing through the meal to get to the next appointment. And this is what's not happening for people, and they're scared to eat. They don't know what they can eat. They're trying things. They're feeling discomfort, gas, pain, bloating, constipation, diarrhea. All of those are signs of an unhappy gut. And when we run labs on the functional medicine side, again, we can see what's going on. Is it bacterial overgrowth? Is it yeast overgrowth? Is there mold in your gut? Is it parasites? Is it H. pylori? All of these factors are likely one of the causes of your discomfort. And once we know that, we know how to address it.
So you touched on this just a second ago, but can you, for those people who, gut health, well, my gut seems to be fine. Can you go through, a list of things that you mean by gut health? You mentioned some of them just a second ago, but.
Yeah, so those most common symptoms are anybody who is struggling with bloating, with regular gas, not the one time or here and there. We're all human. We're all going to have gas sometimes, but regular gas, it's impacting their lifestyle. Like, they're kind of embarrassed that they're going to go out and other people are going to know that they've got a gas problem, right? Heartburn, anything that has to do with food where there's discomfort eating. So whether it's in the swallowing portion, whether it's knowing that your gut feels pain or any kind of discomfort in the digestive process, if digestion is taking longer than it should, right? If you've had a full meal, you should have digested that well within 3 hours. But if 4 or 5 hours later, you're still feeling heavy in the gut, then you've got weak digestion and your body's not digesting that in the right amount of time, and you want to be addressing that. Anything wrong with bowel movements? If you don't have healthy poop, and I do talk about poop with my clients all the time, I have a little poop chart. If you struggle with any form of constipation or diarrhea, that is not normal. That is a sign that your gut is not happy. If you have skin issues, that can be a sign your gut is not happy. So things like eczema, rosacea, psoriasis, any type of rash, that is often coming from an unhappy gut. So we want to address the gut rather than be putting on, steroidal topical creams that are then getting into your bloodstream and are yet another toxin that your body is trying to cope with. Nausea obviously is an issue, and that's, yes, you can be nauseous with a virus that'll last 2 or 3 days, etc. But if you have ongoing nausea on a regular basis, ask why, because that's a symptom. What is going on? So anytime something feels off, people just need to start asking why and looking for answers. So those are really the most common ones, and people often don't realize that skin issues stem from the gut. Another common one is asthma. Asthma issues also can stem from the gut. And when we heal the gut, then all of those symptoms can go away. It's interesting because Hippocrates said 2000 plus years ago, all disease starts in the gut. And he's right. And it kind of blows my mind that he knew that way back then.
Yeah. Yeah. So in your opinion, Melissa, if someone is having gut issues, where does that fall? Is there a sequence of things? Oh, when things start in the gut, then it's going to, evolve. It may evolve into more musculoskeletal or more, neurological, or is there any kind of pattern that you've seen in terms
There's
of the sequence of
no
events?
pattern because we are all individuals. And every one of our microbiomes is as unique as our fingerprints. And what's really interesting is this is also where epigenetics comes into play. So epigenetics is new science in the last 10 years or so, where we now know that your health outcomes are not tied directly to your genes. Your health outcomes are a combination of your genes and the environment you create inside your body. So basically the health of your gut and the lifestyle factors that create them. That dictates your health outcomes. Well, the percentage weighting on those factors are that it's 5 to 10% genes and 90 to 95% that environment you create inside your body, which is really powerful because you have 90 to 95% control. You can learn how to detox, how to adjust your lifestyle factors so that you can create a clean environment where you're not living in chronic inflammation, because it's that inflammation that triggers the switch to turn on the genes to whatever you're genetically predisposed to. So that's the piece where it's different for everyone. So one person's gut might turn on a switch that could lead to, say type 2 diabetes. Somebody else's gut might turn on a switch that could lead to some kind of, neurological issue, or perhaps it's a musculoskeletal issues, etc. So it's all different for everyone, but getting to the root of the gut is so critically important.
Wow. Gosh, I wish I would have known you when I owned my clinic, because I had so many patients I've tried to send to people like you, but I didn't know who to send them to because I knew something else was going on, and this makes perfect sense to me. So I love how you're explaining this. So I wanted to also move on to the other part of your work with hormones and so forth. Is there anything else you want to talk about gut issues before we move on to hormone issues?
Other than to say we're all interconnected, right? So gut issues can impact hormones. For instance, our liver is part of our gut, and our liver is charged with helping the body detox. And one of the things that helps the body to detox is excess estrogen. But if our liver is bogged down because of the 144,000 man-made chemicals that have been introduced since World War II, getting into our body, etc., through air, waterways, it can't do its job fully. And so it may not be able to excrete all toxins, and it may not be able to excrete enough estrogen. So our hormones can become imbalanced because of what's going on inside our gut. But there are other reasons that our hormones can become imbalanced as well. But I just want to point out that connection, because so often, we think, oh, it's my heart. I have to address my heart health. Or it's diabetes. I have to address just one thing. It's never just one thing, right?
It's this component thinking that we're trained to think, right? We think, oh, this is just my heart, or this is just my liver. But
Exactly.
It's so connected. So
exactly. And I think that's another piece of functional medicine that's different to conventional medicine, is we're looking at the whole individual and not just the component, as you said. So diving into hormonal health, the message that I want to share here is that all of the symptoms that we have as women and accept as normal we should not be accepting. We don't have to accept them. We can do something about them. So whether this is, teenagers in the high school hallways complaining about their PMS, or whether it's, women trying to get pregnant, struggling with infertility, or whether it's women going through menopause and thinking it's completely normal to have, night sweats and hot flashes and vaginal dryness and poor sleep and, brain fog, because they've talked to their mothers, they've talked to their friends, and they're all having those symptoms too. It must be my rite of passage as a woman. No, that's what society has trained us to think. But that is not true. Each one of those symptoms is your body asking you to do something differently. Our body talks to us, and it talks to us in the form of symptoms. And when we experience the symptom, that's when we get to say, why? Why am I having this symptom? What can I do about it? And so just like I rebalanced my hormones after discovering my progesterone was really low, that's what I help people do today. And as I said, when I hit perimenopause and all of my hormones had got up and left me, I had to support my body through natural herbs in raising my hormone levels again so that I could make those migraines go away. For me, that was my symptom. What are the other symptoms that other people are experiencing? Don't accept them. Ask why. We don't have to tolerate them. Our bodies are such miracles, and we were never designed to suffer, but we were designed to listen and take action. But we've been kind of taught out of that.
Yeah.
And just accepting.
Right. Well, I guess I'm just getting older.
Exactly. Or it's seasonal allergies, or blaming it on my genetics. Right. And again, we don't have to accept our genetics as dictating our health outcomes. We can choose to do something completely different and change those outcomes. We just need to know to pay attention when our body's talking to us. So that's the work that I do, helping women with their hormones, is helping rebalance those hormones. And in one lab test, I get so much information. So first of all, we use saliva to assess all the sex hormones and cortisol levels. And we look at cortisol 4 times through the day. So morning, lunch, dinner, and bedtime, to see if people have a normal diurnal rhythm for their cortisol, highest in the morning, lowest at night, or where it might be out of balance, and where the body needs help calming, and where we need to be addressing stress in their life, and perhaps helping them get to sleep because it's too high at night and they're not getting restful sleep because cortisol's too high. Melatonin can't be produced because they're inverse hormones. So we want cortisol lowest at nighttime and melatonin at its highest. But that's not what's happening in many people these days. And we need to look at why, right? And there's many reasons for that. So when I see those markers, then I know how to start addressing and guiding people. But in that same lab, we also do some blood work, and we get all 4 thyroid markers. So not only TSH, but your free T3, free T4, which are critical early warning markers for any thyroid imbalance. And then we also get your insulin markers, both 90-day and fasted. And we get your vitamin D markers. Now, having all of that in one lab is so powerful because cortisol can drive our estrogen and progesterone out of balance. Then estrogen becomes too high. The liver's not detoxing it. When we stay in that state for too long, it starts to slow our thyroid, which slows our metabolism. People start gaining weight. They don't understand why. That can also drive us down the path of type 2 diabetes, even when we're not overweight yet. And it can drive us down the path of breast cancer, that estrogen dominant state that has partially to do with toxins in the body, and the liver can't detox it. But also, when the liver can't do its job properly, it will protect our blood from the toxins by storing the toxins in our fatty tissue. Well, guess where women have fatty tissue? In our breasts, in our brain, all of us in our brain. We don't want toxins in either of those places. But too long in those places and trapped in our breasts with underwire or tight-fitting bras is another cause of breast cancer, right? So when we see all of that information, it's really powerful early warning messages for people so they can make some changes before they get any of these diagnoses from their doctor. Because I'm not a doctor and I don't diagnose. I'm literally looking for the imbalances so that we can rebalance. And the sooner we rebalance, it's like a seesaw, right? The closer you are to the center, you're just a little bit off balance, it's easier and takes less time to bring you back into balance. The further out you are, maybe the more work that it's going to take. But still, in most cases, we can be rebalancing hormones and, in fact, rebalancing the gut in a 6-month period.
That's pretty fast for an internal issue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And considering how long it's taken the body to get to this state and how long you might have been having symptoms and possibly ignoring them, 6 months is a really short amount of time.
Can you describe maybe just to give us an idea of how you work with people? Can you describe maybe a recent case that you've been working, a person you've been working with, their case?
Sure. So first of all, when I work with people, the first thing we do is a detox. And so I guide people through a 21-day detox. And the purpose of that is, obviously, as I said, we live in a toxic world. We want to clear out that inner body. There's no point investing in lab testing and then starting to put healing protocols into the body if the goodness of those protocols can't get to the cells that need it, because it's getting into a mixed mosh of toxins, right? I liken it to an overflowing trash can in a city park. We've all seen that. You take something healthy like an apple and put it on top, it's not going to get down inside where you want it to go. It's just going to fall on the ground next to it, right? That's what happens if we don't first detox. So a powerful functional medicine detox that is a reset for the body, for starters, but it really supports the liver. It gets our liver functioning properly again. It gets our kidneys functioning again. It gets our bowel movements properly moving again so that we are able to release the toxins. And in that 3 weeks, people already start feeling better, every single one of them. So because our body's designed to heal, when we create that environment for it to heal, it starts healing quickly. And it's not just one part of the body that starts healing, all of the body starts healing because of that interconnectedness that we talked about. So in the detox, people are already starting, even if they had gut issues, their gut's starting to feel better. Digestion's functioning better. Bowel movements are moving more easily. Maybe they're sleeping better. We're bringing down inflammation, so some of their aches and pains in joints are going away. Brain fog's going away. They're feeling more energized because they're sleeping better. And while we're doing the detox, we're also running the lab testing. And it takes 4 weeks for me to get those results by the time they get mailed to the lab, and then the lab sends me the results. And then I have time to review them, prepare the wellness protocol, and meet with you. And as we said at the very beginning, my business is entirely virtual. So I meet with you over Zoom to review your labs. But I don't just review the labs and say, here, now go do this. I've seen that done. And I've seen people's response to that. Oh, it's too hard. I can't do it. So I'm not going to do anything, right? So what I do is I guide people through, as I did with my kids all those years ago, and hence the name of my company, Your Guided Health Journey. So the minimum number of appointments I will do with people is 4. But if people want more support or they have more going on when we start, then we're going to have more sessions. So we review the labs and I write the wellness protocol. And we look at the big rocks first, and then the medium size, and then the small ones. So as specific examples, for instance, I have someone right now who's got a lot of yeast overgrowth and a lot of mold in their gut. And this is likely from years and years of prescription medicines. Their digestive system is not functioning. They're not comfortable eating, and they don't know what they can eat, and they're trying to get to the bottom of this. So what I will address first is the yeast overgrowth. So we're doing the detox now, then we do the yeast overgrowth. Once we've addressed the yeast overgrowth, then we're going to address the mold. We can address the mold at the same time that we addressed healing the gut. So some things we can do at the same time. So when we address the yeast overgrowth, that's basically getting the yeast out of the body, right? So we first have to remove what's there that we don't want anymore. It's caused damage to the lining of the gut. And so we want to heal the lining of the gut to ensure we don't end up with something called leaky gut, which is where particles get into our bloodstream through little holes in the gut lining that shouldn't be getting into the bloodstream, right? So we take it in steps and we address the most important factors first. If this person, for instance, had a parasite, I would be addressing the parasite first because we need to get that parasite out of the body. They're awfully terrible to the body and our health. So that would be where I would start, right? So for each person, it's literally looking at what are the results of the labs that you ran, what's most important, what's next, and what's next. First, sometimes we can be addressing hormones at the same time that we're addressing the gut. It's up to the individual and what's going on.
Okay.
Does that help answer your question?
It sure does. It makes perfect logical sense to me. And thanks for explaining that. So if
And
people
sorry,
wanted,
what I didn't
go
say
ahead.
there is that I do multiple appointments. So I'm guiding people through the existing protocols and then the transition to the next protocol. And then throughout all of that time, they're connected with me through an app and or through email, whichever is their choice, so that they can always be getting their questions answered. So it's not like the doctor, you go to the doctor, but then to ask your doctor a question, you got to make another appointment, right? I give people the access because I know when people can get their questions answered, they will continue with the program. It's when you
Absolutely.
can't get your questions answered that your brain will talk you out of it.
Mhm.
Going, you don't know what you're doing. This is different. You don't even know if you're doing this right.
Yeah.
And that's when we kind of fall prey to our brain versus talking back to our brain and going, I do know, and I can ask Melissa, and I know I'm on the path. So just stick with me as I bring us both to better health. And I do provide recipes as well, because I'm often changing the way people eat, and that's hard, and they don't necessarily know how to get started. And so I provide absolutely delicious, easy to make recipes so that people can get started in a new way of eating, where I'm removing the inflammatory foods, typically dairy, gluten, eggs, because it's another common trigger,
Mhm.
so that we can lower the inflammation, which allows the body to start healing.
It's so comprehensive and it just sounds so beautiful to me. So that's exactly how things should be working, So thank you so much. If people wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that? How would they reach out to you?
So the best way is either just email me at melissa@yourguideathealthjourney.com or go to my website, yourguideathealthjourney.com, and there's a contact button. There's also a book button. And I do offer a complimentary consult to every single person so that I can understand what it is that you're dealing with and what your health goals are, and if I'm the right person to work with you. And you can get to know me a little bit more and decide if I'm the right person to work with you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see how you couldn't be the right person to work with. It's just so perfect. It sounds to me, your whole approach is just so comprehensive and, person centered. And that's what I love about it. It's just, it's just so individualized.
And that was the gap that I saw because, as I said, I worked with my naturopath and, she really helped me rebalance my hormones. That was relatively easy to do. And I'm a self-motivated person and I really care about my health. But I referred other people to her for help in various areas of their health, and they couldn't do it because there wasn't the follow through. And so that's what I wanted to have in building my business, is creating that follow through to really support people and hold their hand along the way and make it as easy as possible for them, because change is hard. But
It
when
is.
we are supported, we can do it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we just have a couple more minutes. So is there a final message you would like to put out there to people listening or watching?
sure. My mission is to change the way we think about our health and to stop taking it for granted and instead recognize that it is our greatest asset. And think about the way you look after your car. You take your car in for regular services and oil changes, and if something breaks down, you fix it. When that warning light comes on, you take action. Think about your house. You clean it, you vacuum it you take out the trash. If things break, you fix them, you renovate. Start doing that for your own body. Let's take out the trash. That's the detox. Let's listen to those warning signs, those indicator lights on your dashboard, and ask why and take action. because your body needs it just as much as your car and your house, if not more so, because you can't build the life that you want to live from your sick bed. And unfortunately, today, people are spending 10 years on average in a nursing home at the end of their life, which is not quality of life. What do you want? Do you want to what my grandmother had, which is what I want? Or do you want 10 years in a nursing home? That costs a lot of money too. Sometimes people won't invest in their health because they don't want to pay for it. That costs way more than the investment you make now, so you never have to spend 10 years in a nursing home.
Yeah, I'm right on board. So I've learned so much talking to you. So thank you so much for sharing.
It's absolutely my pleasure.
And folks, really, you know, our body, like Melissa was saying, our bodies are designed to be healthy and pain-free. And if you're having chronic issues and no one's giving you the answers, it's likely going to be found in a place where maybe you haven't looked before. And I think Melissa would be a perfect place to begin looking if you haven't already. So thank you for being here.
It's absolutely my pleasure. And I'll send you a link for my Discover Your Toxic Load quiz that you can put in the show notes, and the audience can discover their toxic load. It's a short, quick quiz, just starting to have you pay attention to your symptoms and noticing which ones you have, and we'll give you a score. And don't worry if the score is high. It's high for so many people in today's world, but that's your first indicator warning light to take action and do something about it.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much, Melissa.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for helping me get the message out.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm looking forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, and likewise.
Okay. Bye-bye.